Okay, so last chance to kind of maybe shoot that QR code before we get going here.
And like we were saying, the QR code basically just lets you to sign in. It will allow you to ask questions, like type in questions in case you have to leave early, or in case by a rare chance there's questions that we might not be able to answer. We can then easily pass them along to EF and absolutely get back to you.
A few more are just kind of coming in here, so I'm sure they're gonna be coming on through the next 10 minutes. So that's fine. It's introductions at the start, so they're not missing too much.
I think we're ready. Go for it.
Okay. All right.
So welcome. We are super excited to be meeting with everyone. So welcome Sunset, welcome Southridge families. Here's a real brief agenda that we're going to cover today. Like Scott was saying, we'll talk briefly about current trips that we're running. Of course, our highlight is going to be our Japan trip for 2024. We're going to talk about all the great things about EF, why we love them, why we travel with them, and how to enroll. So we're going to actually introduce one of our teachers who's going to be joining us on this trip. And I have the pleasure of teaching with him at Sunset.
I do too.
And so does Scott. Scott, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Travis, say hello.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Hey, I'm Travis Rockley. Like Sarah said, I'm new to Sunset, but I taught at Whitford the previous 5 years. Super exciting to see some familiar faces in the crowd who I had back at middle school. So hi to you all. But for those of you who don't know me, just super passionate about travel and have wanted to get on with doing these trips for years now, but due to other commitments and different things, haven't quite had the time. So super excited to be joining Scott and Sarah in Japan for 2024 and possibly something this summer. But it's nice to meet you all and really look forward to it.
Hi, everyone. It is great to see some familiar faces. I'm Sarah Bell. I've been doing EF trips for a couple years now, but I've been a science teacher at Sunset for 19. And so I have lots of experience with kids. I love traveling. I had the pleasure of traveling a lot when I was a kid, so I feel really lucky in that. And I think that's kind of what started my passion for traveling. And my parents were so wonderful about helping me to go on trips and taking me on trips. So I'm really excited that we can, with EF's help, offer some amazing opportunities for your students. I also am the HOSA advisor, which is like medical DECA, if you know what that is. And so I have to run trips for those guys. I do EF trips, so I have a ton of experience traveling with kids. I did Dublin, London, and Paris. And last summer I got to do a big trip with like 22 kids to Italy. And it was amazing. It was the food tour of Italy. And we ate and walked and ate and ate and ate and ate and walked. And it was the best thing ever. I am running a trip this summer, actually, to in July. And we're doing like the Central Europe kind of historical dabble, I guess. We're going to Berlin and Prague and Krakow and Budapest and Vienna. It's going to be an amazing trip. We're going to see so many of the historical sites that we've all read about, we've all heard about, we've all seen on Instagram. It is not too late to sign up. So if you have any interest in traveling this summer, like if you just can't wait for Japan, please go ahead and email me or sign up, or let me know if you have any questions. I'm in one hall right by the student store, so it's hard to miss me. But yeah, this is the trip I'm running this summer, and I'm really excited to be joining Scott and Travis and a couple other teachers in our Japan trip for 2024.
And then I'll introduce myself. I'm Scott Bernick. I'm the Southridge teacher of this group, but I also teach a little bit at Sunset. I've been at Southridge now for 20 years, which just kind of feels crazy to me. Primarily teaching IB math. Coached for a number of years, and actually, like it says there, I started teaching since COVID, the Sunset IB class as well. I've traveled with my sports groups, high school students in the past, but about 7 years ago, no, about 6 years ago now, is when I kind of started the travel program at Southridge. And unlike Sarah, I really didn't travel as a kid. I guess we went to Canada and maybe Mexico once, but I had not really been out of the country too much until I started taking students. And my first trip was that one there to Peru, and it really kind of changed my life. I didn't realize I'm a Portland grown person, and so I didn't really realize what was out there. Going to Peru that first time was kind of a culture shock to me. It got me out of my comfort zone, and I realized kind of by the end of the trip I liked that, and it kind of gave me confidence for when I came back home to Beaverton. And I think that's the number one thing that students gain out of traveling, is they kind of become independent. So it's a cool way prior to college for students to kind of be away from their families, maybe for a week. This one, the Japan trip, is 10 days. It's a cool, I just think it's a good transition kind of to them be on their own. And just again, the confidence that you learn, how being grateful. Like in Peru, we were without Wi-Fi for 3 days, and that freaked us all out at first. But then by the end, we're like, whoa, we survived. We're still here without Wi-Fi. And just kind of when you come back to Beaverton, you realize just again, like how nice it is. One thing, I have traveled Japan in the past, and I took a group of students in 2018, and oh my gosh, humidity was something that I didn't know about, being a homegrown person in Portland. And so when we go to, like Sarah in Europe this summer is going to have a ton of humidity. When we go to Japan in 2024, it's going to be like 90-degree heat, but then also 80-degree humidity. And that's just something that I wasn't used to. You step outside and you start sweating. So that kind of was just all those shocks to me. I ended up really liking. You kind of maybe you get a little scared at first, but that overcoming the scare is something that I like to see in my students in my math class. But then I see it way more when I take students traveling. Me personally, Mrs. Leiden and I. So Mrs. Leiden is another Southridge teacher. We're going to Belize this summer. Belize is, there's a little map there, but that's it's kind of southeast of Mexico. So it's a Spanish speaking country. Spanish students, if you're studying Spanish, great chance to use it, kind of just, immerse yourself in it. We kind of force that a little bit on you guys. We'll try to push you guys to do that in Japan as well. This is a cheaper trip, definitely, than Japan, and I would have guessed than Mrs. Bell's trip to Europe as well. So it's a little more affordable. If you're interested, please email me. There's a link it's Beaverton Student Adventures, which is this email that I made a few years ago because I started traveling with other teachers from other schools, and we didn't want something to just say Southridge students. So, it's just a way for us to get kind of all students from the Beaverton area. So I'll say this, we're going to transition to talking about Japan here. And because it's a year and a half away, it really means that if you're a senior on here, you guys, we really don't allow seniors or we don't allow college students or students that have been out of, high school for a year to come travel with us. So seniors, we kind of are limiting you to, this Belize trip or the Budapest trip, the Central Europe trip. So this trip really for Japan, you guys, because it's 2024, it's over a year and a half away. It's really for, freshmen through juniors, current freshmen through juniors. Okay, let's get into it. So this is kind of the trip as a whole. You're, by the way, like Sarah said, you're going to get all these slides. We're going to send these to you guys afterwards, and we have a way to send you the video as well. So we fly into Osaka. I went there with my students before. It's a really cool Japanese city. To me, though, the coolest city that I went to was Kyoto, that we spent 2 nights in. I only did 1 night before. It was a really, really kind of historical feeling city compared to Tokyo, which is just giant. Personally, the reason that I kind of picked this trip versus the other, the EF, our travel company offers a couple Japan trips. The reason I really picked this one, though, is for the middle part of the trip there, where we go kind of into the countryside, Takayama and Kanazawa. I'm super excited for. So we'll see a lot of the kind of Buddhist religion kind of influences in the area, like the gates and stuff that we'll see, and then all these, the different architecture of Japan I kind of fell in love with when I went there. This is in Tokyo, I believe. Yeah, I'm covered a little bit on my screen. Yeah, this is a really cool kind of central hub of Tokyo. Tokyo to me was incredible. It's the largest city I've ever been to, and it was the most well run. you know, like I think of going downtown Portland right now and seeing the homeless. There's none of that. It's the cleanest city ever. They don't even actually have trash cans. When we go like get our bottles of water, we look at it like recycle and put them away. They don't. Every Japanese citizen carries their trash around. It's like just and it's still cleanest. It's amazing to me, and so efficient. Their subway system, and then their elevated like like we have the Max, kind of like that. A lot of people don't drive cars there, so there's not a lot of traffic. It's just an amazingly well-run city. Anyways, here it kind of is in a nutshell, day by day breakdown. One thing I'm super excited for is this Zen meditation experience that happens a few days into the trip. Southridge students, if you know Mr. Griffin, who is our activities director, ask him about his meditation experience on his high school trip to Japan. He has a really funny story about that. I don't really want to give it away. So if you know Mr. Griffin, ask him about his Japan trip when he was in high school. So I don't really want to go through all this, one by one. So parents and students, one thing I would suggest you do is, maybe Google some of these things and see like what is there. I like to do that kind of before our trip. And so I like to kind of like know the gist of where we're going, but I don't really want to personally read into everything. I like to be surprised by some of it, and then kind of go back and study again if I was super interested. My favorite part about traveling, Sarah mentioned this with her Italy trip, is the food. In Japan, it's known for the sushi. There's a picture of there. Me personally, I loved the oh my gosh, what's their word for fried? Travis or Sarah, do you know they fry the veg? Yeah, tempura. The tempura there was really, really amazing. I don't know. I'm passing this back to Mrs. Bell here, but Mr. Rickley, do you have anything kind of to add about what you're excited for on that trip?
Yeah, I mean, for me, just I mentioned in that first slide, but didn't say it out loud. I've been really fortunate to have been able to live in some other countries of the world, but Japan has always been of specific interest to me, just about the blend of like culture, nature, food, all those things you kind of combine into one. And so like Scott mentioned himself, like I'm a foodie myself, so that part definitely speaks to me, but just the blend between like historical, architectural, nature elements. I think it's one of those countries where you can kind of combine all those different elements into a trip, and that's something I'm super excited for.
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes it so fun for us as teachers, like Scott kind of mentioned, is the growth that we get to see kids experience. I know when I took my first batch of kids for our Dublin, London, Paris trip, everyone was really shy and quiet on our departure day, but like by halfway through the trip, kids are talking to people on the street and, like linked arm in arm. And we just see this amazing growth over such a short window. So like from the parent perspective, gaining that confidence and that independence, especially as kids are transitioning either to, almost graduation or off to college, it's some of the greatest things we get to see as teachers. So it's going to be a lot of fun to travel with these guys and a couple other teachers as well. But let's go through a little bit about the trip and some of the reasons that we really, really love EF. We are lucky enough that we have been able to lock in our departure date and our travel window. This is not always the case with these trips, but mark your calendar. We are going to depart on July 8th, and we are going to return on the 17th. There is maybe like a 1 day wiggle room here, but it is pretty much locked in stone these dates. So if this is a trip you are interested in, give us like a day or so on each side. And we are so excited that we're going to be able to take you on a 10-day trip to Japan. Our goal, and this hasn't really been stated, but we're trying to fill a bus. And what that means is there is a limited number of students that can go and go on all one trip. And so this is one of the reasons we've teamed up with Scott, and we would love to make this like this Sunset Southridge tour where we get kind of a private tour with just our two schools. So that's one of the things that we're shooting for and we're really excited about. Why do we love EF? There's a lot of reasons. EF has been around for a really long time. They have, I think they're one of the oldest travel companies around, like this slide says, over 55 years of experience. They have so many on-site locations all over the world, ground support, and basically they just have everything dialed in. They're one of the international leaders in educational travel. And then one of the really cool things is they are accredited just like our school. So one of the options is you can earn high school or college credit if you sign up for this trip, and we can tell you more about that if you sign up. Of course, with modern day travel and modern day life, as a parent, I'm sure safety is probably one of your number one questions and concerns, which is valid. And like I was saying, EF does such an amazing job of scouting these trips, going out and exploring the venues. They are constantly have their thumb on the pulse of every trip we go on. And one of the coolest things is they're able to make an on-the-fly change if something happens. So kind of a non-scary example is one of our hotels flooded and when we were on our Dublin, London trip, and I didn't even know. They sent out an email hey, we're going to be staying in a different hotel tonight. And they were able to that day rebook us to a different hotel, 50 kids in the blink of an eye. And it was seamless. The kids didn't even know that something had gone awry. So they are so on top of it. If anything were to happen, they have boots on the ground. We have a 24-hour support team. We have a tour director who's with us the entire time from the moment we land to the moment we depart. And then, of course, all the chaperones, with which we are quite versed as well. If you are so inclined, EF also offers some really great options just to give you a little more confidence as far as booking. So these are a couple different options, and you feel free to read on EF's website about them, but it essentially gives you a little extra. It's like travel insurance. So if you needed to cancel for some reason, this gives you a little protection. If you lose baggage and have to go shopping in Japan, this gives you some protection. So definitely take a look at these options if this is something that you're interested in. And Scott is going to tell us what's going on and what's included in this amazing EF package.
Yeah, so parents, if you can't tell, we hold out the cost till the very end, which we're getting to here. So what is included on the whole thing, you can see there, it says right here. I really can't stress, I don't know if my pointer works, but I really can't stress what Sarah just said about the tour director. This person, like she said, is with us as soon as we land, and they're there the whole 10 days with us, and they don't leave our sides. They are the ones that are really making all the reservations, making sure that students with dietary restrictions get fed correctly when we go to a restaurant. If like she just said with hotel reservations, just we basically have a 24-hour person with us who is Japanese, speaks the language obviously, and just kind of it makes it so that Sarah and I really, all our job is really just to make sure students get up in the morning on time, and they're behaved well, and they get to bed basically. But transportation, basically anytime we go to a museum, that's covered. And the cool thing about traveling with EF and doing group travel is we'll have our group, and we'll all have tickets, and we'll go to the front of the line because we're traveling as a group. So we skip a lot of the long lines of these things. So not only do we have the tour director, we also have local guides who are specific to, if I go back to the slide and go to Osaka, this person lives in Osaka, and so they know just that city, and we'll have a guide just for that. What's not included, I think, is the next slide. Yeah. So you guys, what we asked, on top of the cost, we all have to get our own passports. If you check a bag, we try not to have people check bags. Although actually personally traveling in the past with student trips, they allowed one bag free, but they might change that. Who knows? Everything changes, nowadays. Oh, we do ask for tips. We collect this prior to leaving, so that's not for a year and a half. So meals are covered except for some lunches. And then if your student's a snacker, like if they just snack all day, that's on them. Sorry. The college credit. So just by enrolling, you don't just automatically get college credit. Mrs. Bell and I will kind of like explain once the trip gets closer. You really don't sign up until right before we leave. How to sign up for college credit, and it's like $250 for 3 credits of college credit, which is really, really cheap, and it transfers to any college that you go to. So I try to talk students into doing that each year. And then of course souvenirs and gifts for family and parents. That's on each family individually. Okay, so here again is
can I
Yep.
just real quick?
Yeah.
I think the thing that like is really important to emphasize, especially for what EF covers, like the way I think of it is they cover everything, but essentially 1 meal a day, snack money, and then tip money.
souvenirs. Yeah.
And so if you tried to do this trip on your own, it like we've done price comparisons using like Travelocity or whatever. It usually ends up being like, my trip to Italy, it was like $1,500 cheaper to do it with us as a group than if you did the exact same thing with EF, because we are able to book group travel. We are able to book, hotels as groups. And so the like airfare, hotels, every bus or max line that your kid will have to take, all your meals, all the guides, everything is covered with the price that we're going to tell you guys, minus just those few things that we said. So really it makes like planning for families a lot easier because you know the exact price up front, and really you just need like, a couple $100 for like the actual travel dates.
Yeah.
And so that's a really cool thing that EF does, because it just helps families budget. And there's no surprises, like everything is covered except for these couple of things. So that's one of the reasons that I think EF is great.
Totally agree. I actually kind of like to research things on my own. So the first time I did travel, same thing as I tried to challenge it. It goes like, can I do this cheaper without a travel company? And I couldn't. So plus you get all of the experience of EF and kind of take it off of our shoulders, which is so nice. Okay, so yeah, what we're leading to then is the actual cost here. So finally, we'll show you the slide, you guys. It's an expensive trip. I mean, we're not going to lie. This is a commitment. It's basically a $5,000 trip. EF says it's $5,200. They give us a $200 discount if we enroll. It says actually like in the next week, if we enroll in a week, they give us $200 discount. If not, they charge us that $5,200 amount. The reason that we do this now, it's over a year and a half away, but most families choose to do that monthly payment option, which is a $250 a month. So it makes it seem reasonable, but us teachers realize how much money this is. And so we're not, this is kind of a serious thing. What I've talked to my students in the past about is, maybe talk to mom and dad about this really being like a change for you, like maybe make some sort of deal about I'll cover 1,000 of it, 2,000 of it, whatever. I'll maintain a certain grade, grades in class. It might mean, getting a summer job this coming summer. My neighbor just did an East Coast trip for his middle school, and he basically just did it by collecting cans and bottles for a year and a half. And with 10 cents a can and bottle, it kind of got close. But I also like to organize kind of a support, when you book with EF, you get like this GoFundMe page. If you guys are familiar with Facebook GoFundMe, I think that works fairly well. I like to teach students how to write support letters, which is like individual letters to family members, maybe like, hey, grandma and grandpa, this is a once in a lifetime experience that I've decided to really want to go on, and I'm looking for any help that I can. The trip's in a year and a half. I'll be sure to bring home a souvenir for you, that kind of thing. So it's just because, students, you're going to be without your families, we ask you to kind of like take ownership in some of this. One question that we always get, I don't know, Sarah, I didn't talk about this specifically, but we do not allow parents to go with their students. And partly is what she said earlier about what we expect students to get out of this is just gaining the independence and confidence of being without their family members is really the reason I do this. And so having mom or dad in the hotel room with you, I really we say no to that. I'm sorry. And that means we might lose some students. I've had a student in the past or a parent in the past say, I'm not letting my student travel without me. And that's understandable. I mean, this is a 10-day trip to a, what is it, like a 10-hour flight? It's a long ways away. Yeah, halfway around the world, exactly. Okay, so between the two schools, to fill a bus, our travel company EF says we are allowed 30 spots. I don't know. I've traveled oftentimes with 20 to 25 students, and the problem with not filling a bus, I don't know. Did you mention how we sometimes get paired with other schools, Sarah?
So I mentioned it in the beginning, and we've been paired, like I've done smaller trips. My first trip was, I only had 6 kids, and we were paired with about 6 other schools from around the US. And there's a lot of really cool things about that. Like you can meet new people, you get to interact with kids from all over the states, but it also presents a lot of challenges. So it can be more of a kind of problem than the benefits. And this ability to fill a bus, especially with just like kids from our 2 schools that we know, I think is a really cool way to approach this, because you'll still be meeting new kids, you'll still be engaging with new people and making new friends, but it's a little tighter of a circle. So it's people we know, it's people we trust. And that also just gives us as teachers and guides, like a little more confidence, because these trips are an extension of the classroom. This is not associated with BSD. I do want to make that very clear. This is not through BSD, but they let us talk about it. And it is important to us, though, that you guys go into this knowing this is not like a party trip. This is not going to be let's get crazy without our parents trip. You guys are going to still be required to follow all the same like rules around drugs and alcohol and that sort of thing. We have curfews, we have room checks, but it's all for your safety, and it's to make sure that we all have a great, safe experience.
Yeah, I'll add to that too, is students, if you're a senior by the time you graduate, or by the time you graduate, if you're 18, actually, I don't know about Japan. It might be 19, the drinking age, but oftentimes the places what is it?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does. Right. It doesn't matter. So what I was saying is this last summer we were in Europe and the drinking age is 18. We still don't allow students to do it, to have alcohol. And it's just a liability thing that Mrs. Bell and I do not want to deal with, because we're not traveling with the Beaverton School District as our logo. We like to hold ourselves as accountable for this trip. A couple of things then on this slide here with the 90. So for $95, it kind of secures your spot. I've had some parents choose to defer payments. So the normal payment plan is like a monthly kind of payment, the $250 a month. I've had some parents decide to defer it until next year. If you get to next year and you're like, okay, we don't think our family can make these payments, that $95 is really all you're out from my experience. Is that true still, Sarah? This was kind of prior to COVID.
So it is a little different, I think.
Oh, is it now?
Yeah, you and I should chat about that. But
yeah, we'll have to. I'm sorry, parents, then.
That's okay. I think the best thing to do, and we can get a clarifying statement put together in regards to this. It does depend. There's 2 different plans. There's like the manual payment plan. There's the automatically monthly withdraw. And there's a few kind of things that we should clarify, but we will absolutely include that in our follow-up email. But one of the really cool things is right now, if you'll go to the next slide, Scott, or sorry, the previous 2.
Yeah.
There's the risk-free enrollment. And essentially, this gives you guys like at least a couple weeks. If you sign up now and you're like, gosh, we just can't do this. This is not for our family. There is a risk-free enrollment period where you can back out and get your money back. So before we send out our follow-up email from this, which we should be able to do like within the next 24 to 48 hours, we will make sure we have it very clearly stated. Like what happens if I want to cancel in 6 months? How much money do I get back? Do I lose any money? So we'll make sure that's nice and clearly laid out.
Yeah, things have changed, and I apologize for saying that since COVID. I was surprised that all these travel companies made it out of COVID. Like you couldn't travel for a year plus, and it was just such a large and company that's been around for so long that it was able to make it. Other ones didn't. Okay, so we're kind of going to end our presentation here and ask for questions here in a second. But if you scan this QR code, this is different than the very first one. This is actually the QR code that will take you to our travel page, meaning that you can see our itinerary that I kind of laid out earlier. It has a link there for you to sign up. This is actually how you sign up, by going to that page. Again, we'll send this out. This is what Mrs. Bell and I are going to post around our schools for students to sign up with. We do think, though, that because we're doing it between Sunset and Southridge, we think this 30 students will fill. So I apologize, families, if you do need, like we need a month to decide. I'm sorry, because the fact that we're doing this with 2 schools and we're trying to, like she said, fill a bus and not travel with other students from around the country. Partly with my thing about traveling with our students, I love it, except we've been placed with middle school students in the past, and just I don't love not having control over who we're traveling with. Sarah, want to add anything before we kind of ask for questions? And you guys, there's 2 ways to kind of ask questions. You can either kind of unmute, do that wave button, or truthfully, the best way to ask, I think, is put it in the chat window, and we'll try to get the chat little button, and we'll try to answer them that way.
Yeah, I think I would just put them in the chat and we can read them and answer them out loud. I would say the only other thing I want to add is before you enroll, I know it's really far away, but double check those departure dates. Like the travel window is not really flexible. So make sure as of now, you don't have anything in that window. And then, like we said, the $95 will lock you in for a spot. And when we send out our follow-up email, if you have changed your mind, you do have a window where you can get money back. And we will put all of that in writing for you once we pull it from our EF consult. But we are super excited about this trip. I've never been to Japan. The farthest away I've ever been is Kenya. And that was also a lifetime experience, once in a lifetime experience. But I just love seeing new cultures and experiencing, a completely different world than what we're used to. So we would love to have you join us for our summer trips this summer. If you have any interest in Belize or Central Europe, please absolutely, let us know. You can also email us. You can stop by. I'm in 19, and you're welcome to come say hi. So you are absolutely welcome to contact us in any way that you need to if you have questions about these trips.
Cool. So let's start taking questions. So Anthony, your question, I think that's enough of an individual question that I'd like to talk to you separately, maybe via email or even on the phone. So can you email? And between Sarah and I, we each have a travel email address that are on those slides before with, there's mine, beavertonstudentadventures@gmail.com. If you email my Beaverton teacher email, it's fine as well. But I think, Anthony, that's more of a personal question that we'll go back and forth on. And then Sarah's travel email is travel with Bell99. I like it. Okay, so other questions. Can you please show the QR code? Yes. So really, I should just kind of be leaving it on the Japan QR code, because the other ones, I'd kind of like you just email. There's no real, like for Belize and Central Europe, you don't need to enroll within the next week. Obviously, though, the sooner you do, the more time you have to make the monthly payments. But I don't know, Sarah, I like kind of take students up until like winter break.
So I kind of have a few helpful hints on this.
Okay.
EF does do slight price increases as the year progresses. So if this is a trip, either my trip or like either of our summer trips or for the Japan trip, if you are like 99% sure you're going, The sooner you sign up, the cheaper it is. A, because prices go up, and B, the monthly payments are divided over a longer period of time. So we strongly recommend you signing up soon. And then the Japan thing, of course, we have limited number. So yeah, the sooner kind of the better. As far as that goes. And then I was going to address the rooming situation.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
a way in advance kind of thing. But essentially the way rooming usually works is we give kids kind of tell us their like roommate wish list. And sometimes kids are paired in rooms of 4, sometimes it's 2s, sometimes it's 3s. It sort of just depends on the hotel. And so every kind of day it might be a little different, but essentially usually you're with a buddy. Like if you travel with a buddy, if you bring a buddy with you, we always try to make sure you're with at least one other person that you know and feel comfortable with. But I can promise you from doing this for many years, we spend so little time in our rooms that by the time we get to the hotel, you guys shower and go to bed. So it's not like, oh gosh, I'm in a room with a bunch of people I don't know. It's never been a big deal.
It's not like a sports trip. If you travel to the hotel, we wake up early, you guys, and we're go until we got back to the hotel. One thing I was going to say about that rooming thing added also is, she mentioned traveling with a buddy. I personally find that a lot of my travelers, you guys don't know anybody else on the trip. So don't think that like our travel programs are like cliques or groups within the school. I've actually really never experienced that. Personally, this last trip I took this summer, because we booked it right before COVID, we didn't meet anybody in person until we actually got to the airport to leave this summer. And it was kind of I don't know anybody. I'm not very comfortable here. And then by, day 2, it was just amazing to see us kind of like come together as a group. So if you don't have a pal that you're traveling with, totally fine. It works out. It always works out really well. And actually that's part of it is